What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh. What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me is Chris Fry. We of the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. Chris, how are you doing today? Post Thanksgiving, we're back from the holiday. How's everything?
So Thanksgiving came, I guess, calendars, who needs them? But we do have them, and it came later this year.
It did.
So all of a sudden, Christmas is in full swing, and I'm already under the gun about trying to get stuff lined up to get presents ready. So it's dude, I am really giving of my time to be taking this time today to sit here and review.
Well, we
the
appreciate
movies.
that, Chris.
So that is my gift to our loving audience.
Everybody thanks you immensely.
Taking a little time out because, I was just dude, no way. It's already, because I guess normally it falls a week earlier, so you kind of have a little bit of a
few
buffer.
days afterwards before you start to see that December 1 pop up on the calendar. But I was not huffing and puffing, groaning because of the idea of Christmas is coming. I'm not a Grinch. I like Christmas. It's just the fact that the entire month of December is all we're going to hear and think about and talk about now is Christmas, and it's a little much. And yes, it did come very quickly after Thanksgiving. So I'm with you on that.
A slight aside, which I will try to remember to update because I'm sure all our listeners are very concerned about it.
Yes.
I've got a game for myself this year. How long can I go until I hear Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You? So far, I've been successful.
I haven't heard it either.
No, the reason I'm doing this
Don't
specifically,
go to any stores or anything.
Well, the reason I'm doing it specifically is last year, the day after Thanksgiving, it was maybe 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh no!
And I heard it, and I was like, "Whoa, that sets a tough precedent for years to come." So we're December 2nd, and I haven't heard it yet.
Just avoid Target or Walmart or any other store that might be playing Christmas music in the background. I think that's your worst case scenario.
I said I have a lot of shopping to do, so that's going to be tough. Maybe I'll wear AirPods.
Do you go to stores to shop, really?
I do.
That's so sweet, Chris.
I know. It's so 1980 of me. But yeah, a lot of times I do try to go to stores.
Look, I have no, I will admit it. I made my giant Amazon queue last night, and today we'll be hitting the button to get that all ordered, and I think Christmas is done.
Wow.
So that's the way I like to play. Look, I love local stores. I will still be visiting some local stores for some specific things I need to get, but the stuff I could have gotten from a big box store, I'm totally fine doing online.
Gotcha.
So, that's where I am. Okay, what are we here to do? What are we?
Movies.
That's right.
Yeah.
Movies. Yes, we're here to talk about movies. Oh boy. And this is, of course, the time of the year where Chris and I watch a lot of movies because we have a lot to catch up on and a lot of screeners to watch. So we will be discussing two films during today's show, kind of giving you a little double bonus here of movie reviews. We'll be reviewing the film from writer and director Jesse Eisenberg, also actor. But in this film, he gets to play all three. And it is the film A Real Pain, also starring Kieran Culkin. So we'll be reviewing that film first, and then we'll be moving into a review of the latest film from director Clint Eastwood. Interesting. We didn't plan this, but two films directed by actors or people who have been commonly known as actors. Of course, Clint Eastwood has been directing movies for, at least 30 some years now. Yeah. We'll be reviewing his latest film. Could it be his last film directed? That's what I'm hearing rumors of. Juror number 2, which is going to be starring Nicholas Hoult and Toni Collette. So we've got those two films to review. Then we're also going to be going into just something we've been doing the last few weeks is we're going to be doing a little Oscar predictions here towards the end of the year, just to kind of see where the mood is shifting right now on some different categories. Today we'll be discussing the male actor categories, the actor and supporting actor categories. We'll be going over varieties, current predictions for those categories and giving our own take on those. So, Chris, are you ready to get going with our first review?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Here's the review of A Real Pain.
Davers and I are cousins. We used to be joined at the hip. Our grandma was from here, so Dave arranged for us to join this geriatric Polish tour with you fine people. That's the way we get by. I really needed this, man. I know that it's tough for you to leave your boy. The way we get by. I don't really have anything going on.
I know it's been a tough few months for you, so...
I also want to say that I know you're not the most comfortable person with people.
I'm not?
No. Does it look real?
Well, they're twice the size of you in metal, so...
You sure you don't want to come up here?
I'm good.
Can you take my picture?
That's what I'm talking about. Marcia!
Thank you, David.
But it's amazing that you're here, putting yourself out there so boldly for me.
Thank you, man.
Let's go smoke a joint.
Word of warning, this will be a tour about pain.
Our grandmother and Benji were super close.
I mean, she was the coolest. I've just been in a real funk, I guess, since she died. Just haven't, A
Real Pain follows mismatched cousins David and Benji reuniting for a tour through Poland to honor their beloved grandmother. The adventure takes a turn when the pair's old tensions resurface against the backdrop of their family history. Entering the theater for Jesse Eisenberg's sophomore directing effort, following up on 2022's When You Finish Saving the World, which he directed and wrote, I was curious how much, if any, of Roman Roy would seep into Kieran Culkin's irritating cousin character, Benji. Did you wonder something similar, Alan? And what did you think of the film? Was it a real pain to sit through?
No, it was not a real pain to sit through. I'm not going to say it's a real joy to sit through because, I mean, it can be a little bit of an annoying film to sit through, but that's intentionally so. You understand why. And because you asked about the comment about the Kieran Culkin, did he resemble much of his character from Succession?
Yep.
Yeah, he did. I mean, there was definitely some of that in there, but a very different slant on the character. You got a lot of the same verbal mannerisms, and you've got a lot of the same rapid fire, just kind of person. But it's a very different character in that the Succession character, obviously driven by ultimately having some elements of greed and some desire for power, while also counteracting with some daddy issues, and there's just a lot more going on.
Sure.
Here he's got grandma issues, so it's a little different. But no, I mean, I it's easy to look at his performance and see and want to keep relating it to Succession because that's what he's gotten so much acclaim for over the last several years.
And that, I think, more or less, that was really my first kind of introduction to Kieran Culkin.
Yeah.
I know he's done.
It was
some other
Scott
things.
Pilgrim versus the World was mine.
Okay, so I didn't really remember him from that,
Yeah.
but I knew that he was in that. So yeah, that was, and it's such a strong presence in that show and such a strong character that, and when I saw the trailer for this, I'm like, oh, that looks like he's kind of, and for me, I'll answer my own question. Yeah, I saw shades of Roman Roy, but that wasn't a bad thing because
No,
it's
it
like,
wasn't bad.
It's kind of like it was a totally different character, and it was kind of like a riff on it, using all the same mannerisms, but having me feel a different way towards the character. So
Yeah.
it was really interesting.
I almost wonder if the role was kind of written with him in mind a little bit, because I think it just played so much to his acting style and his typical type of character performance that he gives. So,
Well, I wonder that too, because, we mentioned that Jesse Eisenberg not only is in the film and directed it, but he wrote it. And then some trivia that I saw online was Benji and David do visit, the grandmother's home in Poland. And that location was where Jesse Eisenberg's real life ancestors settled and stuff. And so, I feel like maybe this was kind of a story Jesse Eisenberg wanted to tell about trying to get in touch with family roots or somehow like process your past. And he's like, yeah, but if it's just me, that's going to be boring. Nobody wants to see that. Right. So how do I? And honestly, too, I wasn't aware. I mean, I guess I saw the trailer, but I'd kind of forgotten. I knew it was like a reuniting of like people that had some tensions, obviously. I didn't realize that the backdrop was necessarily going to be like concentration camps and this really serious. And we've had a lot of stories. I mean, we have things like Schindler's List, and then we had Son of Saul, and we've had some really, important big films come out that focus on the Holocaust and The Pianist. I mean, they're just a lot of films. And so I think if I had known going in that this was the group that they're a part of, they're kind of making this tour. At one point, they do tour, a camp, concentration camp. If I had known going in that it was going to have those elements, I probably would have shied away from seeing the film a little longer, because I'm just like, I didn't know if I was emotionally ready to like be in that kind of intense film. But I thought it was interesting the way they balanced that, and the way the tour group actually. I have to give a shout out to Eisenberg for his writing of it. I feel like the different members of the group all had like personalities, and yes, maybe they could have had more of a story arc, but they were all like, I don't know. I thought they were an interesting mismatched group that somehow balanced out certain aspects of the two cousins. I don't know. I thought it was really well done. They didn't overshadow the relationship between the two cousins, but they all kind of, it was cleverly written, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So,
yeah, no, I think it struck the right tone and balance where, yes, it is a quote buddy travel film in some aspects.
Sure.
An odd couple type of, travelogue, which that always has appeal. I think that's always an interesting film to watch. Two people that are very different personalities kind of traveling together. That's always fun. And I think they threw in just enough family background between these two, or at least relationship background between these two, to make it interesting without it being overbearing. I was a little fearful that it was going to turn into just this constant, these two are constantly either going to be at odds, or constantly just all this resurfaced drama is going to come up and just overwhelm the movie. And it never did. It definitely had some moments, but it felt natural in that, yes, they had some moments where you hear some things and you learn some things about their background, and then they're back to the travel. And it's like, it's human. It's real. It's like,
Sure.
we had a little blow up last night, or we're a little ticked off at each other from last night.
Right.
But you know what? After a few hours, okay, we're back on the trip, and we're doing our thing. And that to me felt natural and real. So that was good. And then the balancing it with the other people on the trip, we didn't get a lot into their backstories, and we didn't need to. They're just like if you were on a trip and there just happened to be other people on the bus, and a little bit about them. Maybe you have a little quick conversation with them, but you don't really get to know their whole life story. And there again, that felt natural too. So I think it was a very natural film. I liked it. I did. I did really like it, the film. I really don't have any criticism of it that I can think of. I mean, anything that I feel like didn't really work as well. I border on saying it's a bit of a slight movie. At the end of the day, it just kind of, that was it, and you're done. But it tinged on just a little bit more than that. But I still really appreciated it as a film. So that's, yeah.
I think I also really appreciate it. And the more I reflect, I've had the chance to see this at a critic screening maybe like a month ago or so. So, but the more I've been able to sit with it and think about it, the more I appreciate it. And I think it's not like this really complex story that has this really complicated plot, but it was just interesting to see the dynamic between the two cousins. And like I said, the group dynamic, I think, and Eisenberg, again, going to shout him out because he is the writer. Early on, they get together, they meet at the airport, and then they find their tour group, and they kind of sit down like you would with a tour group, and the guide introduces themselves, and they go around a circle. And that's like a clever way to say, like, okay, here's this couple. They're a married couple. Here's this woman who's a single woman who's out there trying to like find herself. And then, they kind of go around the group, and and I thought that was just, but they don't, like you're saying, they don't go into this huge in-depth thing, but it just kind of sets it so that you kind of get a sense of, okay, interesting. And
actually, I really like the fact that we learn more about some of the other travelers from one of the characters who just happened to like engage in them in conversation. And that becomes kind of a character beat where we learn a little bit more about that character, by the way he's able to engage with other
So-
people around him. So,
so-
actually, we learn more about the other cast from him, which is
Right.
kind of cool.
So Benji, Benji and David, Jesse Eisenberg's David and Kieran Culkin's Benji. Benji, I'd be curious to think. I think it's going into the film. You say, "Oh, a real pain." That's Benji. But actually, I would actually counter that. I think the title, to me, "Oh, a real pain," kind of like, oh, that's kind of an irritating title. Like, there's not. But I actually think the title refers to what Benji is going through, and not Benji as a person. And I think that's what you're like. You side with David. You meet David first. He's more of this quiet reserve. He has a wife. He has a kid but he's leaving them to go on this trip with just his cousin, and he's more understated. And you can tell he bristles at the way Benji can do irritating things, but yet he's like everybody's favorite person, and like immediately, yes, he's asking questions about the different group, and he's getting all the. And you can tell David is just like, okay, it's not about you. It's like he always seemingly is about shining the spotlight on himself.
Right.
But the longer the film goes on, you learn that he's really just trying to help other people or trying to like work with them. And he has this really tense episode on a train, or was it a bus or a train? Or maybe both.
It was a train.
Okay, and he kind of lashes out at what they're doing and how he feels about what they're doing. And you can tell he's making everyone else that's in this tour group very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
At a later point in a cemetery, he lashes out at the tour guide. And you're just like, whoa. And then you can kind of see, you kind of get a read on like, okay, I can understand how David is like, this guy's a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
But I don't know. At the end of the day, you kind of see and how things kind of come around by the end of the film. You're like, he genuinely is trying to be a good person. He's going through a lot, basically. And I think that it makes you be more, I don't know, kind of reflect on life and try to be empathetic with those around you that may be going through something that you're not quite aware of. So that's, So, also, I think the end scene, which I don't want to spoil. I mean, it takes place in an airport. The thing is concluding. But I'm curious, and I don't know. Maybe we'll discuss off mic. Maybe we'll give a break at the end of the show and come back and discuss it. But that actually, kind of how that ends, and my interpretation of what I took away, actually really took the film, made it a notch up higher. Like I liked it.
No, I think
and
I
then
know.
As I was sitting there and the credits started to roll, I was like, wait. So
I know where you're going with
question
that. I had a brief moment of thinking that as well.
Okay.
So anyway, we'll review later on that. I think it's good. I'll give credit to Jesse Eisenberg. I mean, he did really good in casting these parts, I think. I mean, even casting himself and knowing the role that he's written for himself. Sure. He leans into the stereotypical Jesse Eisenberg character that he's been kind of known to play. And if there is a little bit of autobiographical elements to it, which I think there is, and you commented about even the family history in Poland and so forth. Yeah, I definitely think he's bringing in some autobiographical elements. I think you're right. I think the idea of him just going to Poland to visit his grandmother's house and the concentration camps is not as interesting enough as a film, but you add in this layer of trying to connect with a cousin and this one who just happens to be going through, like you said, going through a lot right now, and how that's affecting the other people around him, I think turns it into a very interesting film at that point. So it was great. I thought the cinematography, the shots were great, especially around Poland. It was a great little kind of mini travelogue. Yeah, you get a little touristy information about the. But I do think the scenes inside the concentration camp were extremely effective.
Oh, sure.
Oh, just the way they were shot, the way they were portrayed. I mean, you feel like you're in a private tour group visiting this facility. And the emotion that they are feeling, I think, conveyed very well across the camera as well. So I was really impressed, too, that they included those scenes. And let them be somewhat of a pivotal point in kind of the storyline. So, yeah.
Also, a bit of trivia. Now, I can't find whether or not it is his son, but I think it probably is. In the film, David has a son named Abe, and in the credits, he was listed as Banner Eisenberg.
Yeah, so this is really
I'm
his
going to
son.
assume that's his son. So, yeah, I think he found a way to make, or at least seemingly, a very personal film, but make it universal enough that it was engaging rather than just like a, I feel like Eisenberg could have made this a documentary about him, I'm going to go research my family and learn about my family. And that could have been good. But instead, he chose to kind of fictionalize it, like you're saying, add in Kieran Culkin. I think it made it that much more satisfying.
Agreed.
So.
I will say, I think, I know the rest of the tour group, relatively small parts, but all, again, back to the casting, I think really, really good casting. And just
Will Sharp, who plays James, who's the tour guide.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was great. He's an actor, director. Maybe he's written some stuff too, but I thought he was, he's great.
I'm most notable for me. I remember I think he was in the White Lotus season 2. I think he played a pretty big character, if I remember correctly there. So, yeah. But yeah, and Jennifer Grey, playing one of the tour group members.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's playing the single Marsha. Okay. I thought she looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. But now, that's Jennifer Grey.
And again, they all played great. I mean, it's small parts, but it just, again, I'll kind of go back to the authenticity of it. I mean, I've been on some of these tours in other countries and kind of guided tours and traveling tours. And it's like, yes, the relationships, the way you interact with these other people, it all felt just very natural.
Yeah.
You could have really easily thrown in some like over the top caricatures of certain types of characters and personalities like we might be discussing in our next review. And then, but instead, I think everybody here just felt real and natural.
And I'll say, Jennifer Grey, who I now know that's who it is, but her character of Marsha, when they're going around the circle and the way that Benji interacts with her, I'm like, oh no. Because, he's like, oh, hey. And he's, it's like, she's an attractive older woman who's single. And it's like, obviously, getting over some serious issue or like maybe it was a divorce.
I think it was a relationship, either separation or something.
Right. And so it's like, and the way Benji's interacting, you're like, oh no, they're going to like hook up. And you can tell that's kind of actually what's probably going through David's mind. Like, oh man, this guy's going to make this trip a train wreck. He's going to try to hook up with Marsha. Like, and that's exactly what it is. Like you said, simple film, but the fact that I found myself thinking that and then to be proven wrong, like, no, he's actually talking to her and like, but he's just doing it just to kind of seemingly work through her issues, but maybe help him kind of work through some of his stuff. So it's, I don't know. I found there were more levels than what I would have thought going in. So really helped me appreciate it.
I will say, we've talked about, somebody could be listening to this review and think, okay, well, this movie doesn't sound very funny. And there is some moments of, I think, real good comic gold. I think there's a scene. It's an interesting scene at a dinner.
Oh, yeah.
That
involves a piano.
Right.
Yeah.
But the scene starts out, I think, very funny.
Yep.
Then it turns very serious.
Yes.
And just, it's an interesting scene. But I think there's a moment where Benji starts to kind of feel a little uncomfortable in the surrounding or hearing information he doesn't want to hear and excuses himself from the table. But that's really funny. It was in the trailer, so it's one of those scenes like his lines and delivery. It was a little ruined for me. I'd already seen, but then when he left and David has a chance to kind of talk and open up to the rest of the group, I thought was really good.
Yeah.
And then the whole time you're wondering, where is Benji? Where is he? Where is he? And then he's back in the back playing a piano, and it's just an interesting. That whole scene was really good, really interesting.
Agreed. And I think, unlike, I guess it was Amelia Perez we reviewed, where it was like that was kind of billed as a comedy. We're like, okay, I think that was the film that you and I were both like, interesting. This has some comedic stuff in it. I mean,
just their banter, the dialogue between the two cousins primarily is just, you start it again. It plays into the whole odd couple
Sure.
motif. You know, it's obviously the two of them very different, and a lot of their dialogue between them accentuates that. It's just later in the film when you start to learn a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes, it makes that dialogue
Makes the weight increase a little bit.
Yeah.
But I thought it would. I think it, like you're saying, it's a feather in both Eisenberg and Culkin's cap that at least you have the light moments and you can still say like, but then there's something more behind it. But it keeps it as light as it is because of the way they're able to do the rapid fire dialogue and the reactions. You can tell both of them are they're in sync with what they're doing.
In both of them as actors and other performances we've seen, that is their thing. They are both.
You could say
the constant barrage of dialogue and very different stylistically in the way to deliver it, but it's still that constant flow of dialogue. It's so heavy on the dialogue, what they're saying and the words they're saying and why they're saying it.
You could say, we were saying Culkin was riffing on Roman Worf from Succession. You could say, in a way, Eisenberg was riffing on Zuckerberg from Social Network, as far as being this like very tight, controlled person. Like, you could say that, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that is good. A Real Pain, I thought was not a real pain to watch. I thought it was really good, and I did enjoy it. When there were discussions about at one point it was batted around as maybe a contender for a Best Picture nomination. I don't see that because I don't think the film has quite enough weight and depth to it, but I didn't need that for this film to work for me. It still was a really, really enjoyable film.
Here's the thing. Obviously, I'm pretty high on the film, and if it somehow got to be, I think back when we talked about the 10, they were batting around.
Yeah. At one point,
we're still early. This was thrown in there. If it somehow makes the 10, not being, I can't remember all the ones that were in there, but it might be the one that I'm going to be rooting for as far as my personal favorite, because I kind of liked it. And it's just for me, it was kind of different. Mm-hmm. So it might be like the underdog that I'm rooting for, similar to way back in whenever it was Parasite won. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to win Best Picture. And then when it did, I was like, yes, I was just super excited.
Yeah.
So, I'll have to see.
All right. Well, that is a real pain. Plus, it met the Chris Fry duration expectation of 90 minutes on the dot.
Yes.
So it
did not overstay its welcome.
It made that exact mark of 1 hour, 30 minutes that qualifies as it being a, quote, comprehensive film, but yet not staying 1 minute beyond its need there. So good. All right. Screenwriting is actually something I would see this being, I'd like to see this nominated for screenwriting. I do feel like
different enough.
Yeah. I feel like it's written well enough. There ought to be some recognition.
It's a bit of a travelogue, yet it's also maybe somewhat biographical, but then it's also this buddy film or whatever. So it's got a couple of different things
original
weaving them
screenwriting.
together.
I'd love to see original screenwriting nomination for it personally. So
agreed.
All right. That is A Real Pain. I think it's in some theaters, still playing right now. Is that the deal?
Probably in bigger cities, but yeah. And I think maybe come maybe sometime in December. Well, we are in December.
Yeah.
Hopefully
it'll be online before too long. Sure. All right. That is A Real Pain. We are both giving a positive review of. Chris really high. I got a feeling I might be hearing this film batted around when we get to our best of the year from a Mr. Chris Fry. I'm guessing. I'm making my predictions. We'll see. I'm not setting any expectations.
Sure.
Saying I could see, I get the vibes from you that I think it really worked for. It did for me as well, but I think it really, really worked for you. That's great. Awesome. All right. That is A Real Pain. Let's go on to our second review, which is the latest from director Clint Eastwood. It is Juror number 2.
It was last October. It was raining, and I hit something. I got out the car and I looked around. I checked, I didn't see anything, and I figured it was a deer that ran off.
Okay, what's the problem?
I got called for jury duty.
In Clint Eastwood's Juror number 2, we have the story of a juror in a high-profile murder case, someone who is elected to become a member of the juror, who's a family man, has a new child on the way with his wife, but he finds himself struggling with a serious moral dilemma that emerges during the course of the case. One that he could use to sway the jury verdict and potentially convict or free the wrong killer in this case. Now, Chris, this is director Clint Eastwood, written by a Jonathan Abrams, who I do not believe is any relation to J.J. Abrams, but Jonathan Abrams is the writer of this film. It has been rumored that this might be Clint Eastwood's last film. Just to give a little Hollywood background here, there has been some concern about how the studio has been not promoting this film and that it did not get hardly any promotion whatsoever. I don't even know, did it play in a theater near us, Chris, at all?
I don't think so. And I think
which is really weird because this seems like the kind of movie that should be playing
Clint
in a theater.
It's got some names in it. And I think it basically had I know it was in New York for a little bit, maybe a week or maybe less than that. So yeah, it hit major cities and then poof.
Well, a lot of people online have been upset about the way that it's been not promoted, not handled, kind of almost shelved with a very limited release and very limited exposure. My question to you, Chris, is that a good thing for this film? Are you okay with the fact that this film did not get a lot of push? Do you think it deserved a bigger push than it got? And in general, what did you think of Juror number 2?
So this would have made, if it was streaming, which apparently it will be shortly soon, in a day or two, this film will be streaming so people can check it out if they want. It would have made the perfect Thanksgiving movie because it's a turkey. So yeah. So no, I completely understand why Warner Brothers didn't do it. Now, I don't know why. Granted, I have not seen Batgirl or the Roadrunner movie.
The Acme,
the Acme Road,
yeah.
Coyote and Roadrunner.
Coyote versus Acme.
Yeah. So I haven't seen those two films, but they decided. They did keep this one back, but yet it was out briefly. But yet I totally thought it's not the fault, it's the writing. I thought the writing was pretty much terrible. The direction is fine. Clint Eastwood's direction is fine. Obviously he's made a lot of movies. Man knows how to direct. The acting, I feel like given the script that they were given, again, pretty fine. Nicholas Hoult, he's having the year. He's going to be in Nosferatu. He's in this. He's in a movie called The Order, which if it was widely available, I'd probably recommend because I actually really liked The Order. But this film just, if you want to see a courtroom drama that makes you think, there's already been one. It's called 12 Angry Men. Much better film. And it's an older, more of a classic. But this film, the plot machinations are so, to me, clunky, and the things that happen, you're just like, really? I'm really supposed to believe all this. It's just, I don't know that I can really say anything, and that's sad. I don't know that I can really say anything positive about Juror number 2.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's weird because, like you said, there's a lot of critic swelling around this film, they think it's one of Clint Eastwood's best films. How dare they not release all this stuff? And I feel like I saw a different movie. I don't know what movie they saw, but I wish I would have seen it because that was not my experience.
I'm going to counter a little bit on you. I'm going to come out and say, ultimately, I don't think this film worked. Okay. I'm just saying that on the record, but for specific reasons. When you mentioned the writing, now, I think it's important that we kind of carve out what writing means because there's a plot not a plot. It's a story where you have a story. Okay. You came up with a concept and an idea of the story you want to tell. And then there's the specific writing of dialogue and what people say and how people act within the film. Okay. That part of it is horrible. Okay. The writing.
Just so contrived.
Yes. The dialogue, the characterization of people is horrible. It is. I felt like it was very, very ham-fisted. We walked into a jury room and within one line of dialogue from each person. You're like, oh, I know exactly now who this person is being pegged as.
I don't put that on the fault of the director or
No,
the actors.
no.
They're doing the best.
It's the dialogue and the characterization that's made throughout this film with the characters. Now, I will say this. The story, meaning the plot, the actual idea, I think is fascinating. Okay. I think this concept, when I started to realize there's a moment in this film early on.
Oh, yeah.
Where you realize what the deal with this film is going to be. And I'm like, oh, okay, now this is kind of cool. I like this a lot. But the problem is the film never lived up to what that premise could have been potential to do.
There is a premise that would work. It's like, what if somehow you could prevent, and you're like, what do I do? Like, you're on this jury. What do I do? What do I do? Yeah, interesting, because you're like, do I let this person go to jail or the wrong killer? Like, the setup you read about the convict go free or whatever. Interesting.
Yeah.
But just so poorly executed.
Execution's
so much
not
so
good.
that I feel like they actually stepped in traps that they didn't have to step in. For example, Nicholas Hoult, who plays the conflicted juror number 2, he goes to talk to a lawyer.
Yeah.
I guess it's one of his friends, an AA buddy.
Yeah,
right?
is a sponsor, I think. Well, or at least a leader of an AA group.
Yeah, it may have been. But he goes to talk to him. And that lawyer gives terrible
Agreed.
advice, which I think if were known, he would be disbarred.
Yes.
Because it's like, now granted, I'm not a lawyer. I did not go to law school. I am not even a professional film critic. I do this because I love it. And Alan and I watch a lot of movies. We didn't train to be film critics. But I feel like from my knowledge of movies, it's like they have to always report what, like, it's in the best interest of their client to like try to help them and make sure they're not. But if they hear of a crime that has been committed, they have to somehow, like, it's like, well, I can't, like, if somebody says, hey, I just shot this person, you can't be like, oh, okay, well, that you shouldn't have done that. Like, there is something that, like, when it's a law, like, there is, I don't know. Now, granted, my understanding of the law is movie based, so don't, but it just, I couldn't believe they opened up that can of worms for seemingly no, I was like, well, that's dumb.
Well, and it's almost like they wrote that character in. This is the Kiefer Sutherland does play Larry.
So it's kind of cool seeing Kiefer Sutherland.
But they wrote this character almost like just a way for Justin, the main character, to be able to explain what's going on, because there's nobody else in the film he can go talk to.
Right.
And we don't have any kind of voiceover. We don't have anything.
Yeah.
So that's the only purpose that character Larry exists in, is to be the, okay, I need to give you kind of a little bit of a data dump on what's happening and why. And it's like, but that character of Larry, why make him a lawyer? Why couldn't he have been just an AA sponsor? That would have, because then it's like he could confide in him and you don't have to worry about, trying to get legal advice from it or the legal quandary that you put yourself in by going to somebody who's actually an accredited
they bothered
lawyer.
doing the thing, which there again, it irritated me so much. Which another thing, supposedly I've heard from movies, is like, if you pay them something, then they immediately can't testify against you. He's like, well, give me $1. So
right.
And I'm like, okay, but you're giving him terrible. Like, that made it worse. Okay, another character who actually, Toni Collette and J.K. Simmons. Toni Collette's like she's the prosecuting attorney. Like, so stereotypical.
Her performance was
I'm
horrible.
all about power and everything.
Her performance was horrible. I honestly, and I'm so disappointed. She's the only actor in here I feel like just was not putting in a good performance. I really feel like everybody else was probably doing their part.
Writing. I feel like it's just like
maybe, but I do think in her situation, I just felt like it was so lazy. It was just so stereotypical lazy. It could have been done so much better. I was really disappointed in her performance. Just felt so. It's almost like, she's supposed to act a certain way, and then when presented with a piece of information, she's supposed to feel a different way, and it's just so painfully obvious. Okay, now my face has to look this way because now I'm contemplating this information, and it's like, it was bad. So,
and J.K. Simmons, who's a former police detective, and he's on the jury, and that was just like, just. So many contrivances, so many.
It was.
Just irritating so
the
much.
execution was disappointing in that I was so amped up about this film when I learned the premise and understood where it was going to go. And then to see it just get not executed on successfully at all was disappointing. Now, I will come back and say, The one character I actually think was written good, and I actually bought him as a character.
The wife?
No, Justin, Nicholas Hoult.
Oh, yeah.
I actually think
Okay.
him by himself, his character, I totally bought him. And it's like I could feel when he was feeling nervous. I could feel when he was feeling anxious and troubled and conflicted. All that. I thought he was great. It's just none of the other supporting characters around him helped to support his role. So I thought he was great. But I just was so disappointed by everybody else around him and their characters, not their performances necessarily, except for Toni Collette. Everybody else, I was disappointed in the way the characters, their actions were all scripted out. Because it was just so stereotypical. Gosh, inside the jury rooms were just painful scenes because it's like, no, I feel this way and I'm not going to budge whatsoever. And I'm doing this because I had this kind of background and I'm going to tell you about my background and that's going to justify the way that I'm feeling right now. So you shouldn't question it. And it was just so painfully obvious from so many of the characters.
So the Sidney Lumet film, 12 Angry Men, black and white film. Have you seen it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that to me, like, it's taking place in a jury room and like that, and granted, it's like saying, well, that's unfair because that's a classic. I understand that, but this was just so hackneyed compared to that, in my opinion. So I just, Nicholas Hoult, I guess I can't, if I had to, you're right.
No,
his performance,
I think he's really good.
Everything, I think he was good. And actually, honestly, you're right. Let's sub out somebody else in that role. I think I would have disliked this film more than I already do.
Yeah.
So, the final scene of the film made me groan as well. It was a huge eye because I kind of felt it coming because I've just felt like there was a lot of moralizing. And granted, to Nicholas Holt's, and maybe let's say a little bit to the writer. Okay, I'll give him a little bit of credit. You never truly know how to feel about what Nicholas Holt's character, Justin Kemp, is doing because you're like, well, I guess I can kind of understand some of the choices he's making. He does seem conflicted. He is a good person, but yet he's making some poor choices. What is he doing to these other people? He's affecting these people's lives. But then at the end, it's like, okay, and this is how you're supposed to feel comeuppance-wise. And you're like, okay.
Well, and even
groaning.
His
wife's pregnant, and there's all that. Yeah.
I like the fact that this film just cuts before any dialogue happens in that last scene. That's good. I thought that was admirable. Okay. But I hated the fact that basically the last shot is Toni Collette just standing there giving this look. Yeah. Again, I don't understand. It was just it was irritating. It's like, I like the concept. Okay, yes. End on this cut to black.
Right.
I don't quite know what's
at least they
what
didn't
the
have
next
some
step
groaning
is.
Dialogue.
Yeah,
but,
I have a pretty good indication of where the story is going to go after it cuts to black, but you don't know 100%.
True.
So that's actually kind of cool. But yeah, it was tough. It was really tough. And again, you're right. Direction wise, it's fine. I think it felt a little TV movie-ish at many times.
It did.
It just felt
actually it felt like like either a miniseries or TV movie. That's what it felt like.
But look, I could argue the same way. I felt, as much as I love the movie, A Few Good Men, I do feel like that was also directed and felt very TV movie-ish in the way it was directed. It just didn't care about the visual appearance of anything. It's just, no, we're just here to tell a story, and we're just going to shoot people in the most traditional ways possible to tell this story. And it's fine. Look, you can get a story across, and it works. I mean, A Few Good Men is a great example. I love that movie because I love the story and I love the decisions made in that film.
Okay.
But it doesn't look great. It's a very plain looking film. Okay. It's there's nothing interesting visually about it. It's just a well told story, in a courtroom drama, which I do love my courtroom dramas. That's probably why I got excited in the first 20 minutes of this movie. I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. This is a great idea. And then it didn't do anything interesting.
And courtroom dramas are not my jam.
Okay. So, all right. I love them. But that's what made this probably even more disappointing by the time I got to the end. It's like, wow, you had this amazing concept of a film. Amazing. That I could not wait to see you pull something off of. And you just didn't.
To have been able to thread the needle and do this film successfully, I think would have been it would have been like, it would probably be my film of the year if that could have happened. And if this is Clint Eastwood's last film, it's a shame that was the effect, because if you were somehow able to navigate that, that would make this film amazing. But to me, man, I wonder if
some of the critical love for this film that some people are having is purely based on the premise, because I do think the premise is one that's like, you can get on board with this film with the premise right away.
Right.
I mean, again, I tell you, 15 minutes into this movie or 20 minutes, whenever that kind of hits and you start to realize what's going on, I'm like, yes. And the fact that it's Clint Eastwood, who's been around forever, and it's, he's 90 some years old at this point making this film.
Right.
I think there's a little bit of that together, but I think we're both in agreement that it's just a poorly executed film. Characters are so paper thin and so predictable all the way through. Yeah. All right. So Chris, is there anything else we want to say about Juror number 2?
No, I think it is fair to say I am probably less positive than you are, and I'm pretty negative. So
yeah, no, you're less positive, and I was ultimately disappointed in the film. I guess that's the best way to come across it. It's one of those where, yeah, it's just disappointing to take a great premise, a great concept, a great cast. I mean, they've got good cast people in this.
Sure.
And, we haven't had a really good courtroom drama film in a really long time. So it's like everything was right in place for this thing to work. And it's just didn't know what to do with this really great setup and a good lead performance, I think, by Nicholas Hoult. And it just didn't know what to do with all those pieces. And just by the end of the day, just kind of jumbled them all. They fumbled it all by the end.
Agreed.
To where there are a lot of questions about why people acted certain ways. Paper thin supporting characters that just, you kind of predicted, you knew who they were right away from one line of dialogue, and you never saw anything waver from them. It was just disappointing. So, yeah. That is a real Juror number 2. I was going to say Real Pain again. Real Pain is a good one.
Yes.
Juror number 2 is not so good. Juror number 2, yes, as Chris said, is available online for rental or purchase, I believe. It is going to be streaming on Max come December 20th. Okay. So you've got online purchase now by the time you hear this, or you can wait until December 20th if you wish to see it. It'll be on Max exclusively as a streaming service. And
if courtroom dramas are your thing, then you might enjoy it. So, or you definitely would enjoy it.
I would say if you like courtroom dramas, and if you are okay with being given a great setup to a film, even just knowing that it's not going to satisfy, that setup very successfully, I don't feel like. Then, check it out just to see what the premise is like. But I hate to say that it doesn't give much more beyond that. So, all right. But kudos to Clint Eastwood. I mean, come on, guys. I think it was 90 years old.
I don't know if he's hit the 90 mark. Definitely above 8, like maybe 85.
Somebody directorial recently was getting at the 90 level. Who was that?
So he was born in 1930. So quick math.
70. Oh, if he was born in 1930, he is 94 years old, Chris.
Oh, okay. That can't be. It says, no, I mean, IMDb let me down. It says 1930, May 31st, 1930.
I was just saying. 30 to 2070, and then you had 24. 94 years old.
94 years old. You're right then. Wow. Yes.
Oh.
Amazing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel bad. I feel bad kind of trashing the film a little bit, but I mean, yeah. Kudos to him for putting out a movie. I mean, I would say that for sure. And it's still being where some people are going to find this somewhat enjoyable and appreciate it. So great.
And I think expectations probably killed it for me too, because all what you talked about it, people being scandalized that it hadn't been released, and Clint Eastwood, it was such a good film, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then when I saw it, I'm like, really? But yeah.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Unfortunate.
Okay. Well, that was our 2 reviews. We discussed The Real Pain and we did Juror number 2. Let's take a quick little break. When we come back, Chris and I are just going to pour over some more predictions for the year, going into the acting categories by a male performer. the lead actor and supporting actor categories. We're going to do a little predictions talk on that. So stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films. We'll be right back in a moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv. Ignore us. Chris and I were just griping a little bit more about Juror number 2 on the While the Mics Were Dead here. So if you'd like to hear us gripe more at any point, feel free to write us a note. We'll tell you at the end of the show how you can get a hold of us, and we'd love to talk to you about this movie a little bit more. Again, Chris came out on it more negative than me, but we are both disappointed. I'm definitely disappointed, and we have issues with the film for sure. All right, Chris, but let's talk Oscars. I know we've been doing this for a couple weeks, but we're kind of on a roll. And I enjoy it. And I think it's fun to start doing some prognostication. Sure. We're in December. We're in the throes of the last month of the year. We know all the films that are at least to still come out for the most part. I don't think at this point there's going to be any surprise film that just comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden gets all this acclaim. I think we're pretty much know what the playing field is looking like. And we've been hitting the categories of potential Oscar nominations for the last couple of weeks. We did Best Picture 2 weeks ago. Then we did the actress and supporting actress nominations last time. Mm-hmm. So let's talk the guys. Let's talk the actor and supporting actor nominations. And again, we're using Variety publication, variety.com, as our kind of our basis for this. They have a great list where they put together their Oscar predictions, and it is a evolving, updating list as more information comes in.
Variety is not a paid sponsor of this show, but Variety,
but
anytime you want to do so, just let us know. Reach out.
We're big fans, of Variety here. So I do encourage everybody to kind of check out their predictions list. We're just going to read out where they stand as of today at the time of recording, where they stand on the Best Actor and Supporting Actor nominations. Let's do supporting actor first.
Okay.
I'm going to read out the 5 nominations, and let's just kind of see where we feel about this. We have Yura Borisov from Anora.
Yes.
He plays Igor.
Yes.
Igor.
I think they say Igor.
Did I pull a Young Frankenstein and say Igor? So, it's Igor.
Igor.
Yeah. Yura Borisov. We're both big fans of his performance in Anora. Mm-hmm. Kieran Culkin from A Real Pain, which we just talked about.
See, and that's one, we can go on. I would almost think that would be more of like a lead. I mean, it is a shared thing, but he's so.
I know. Yeah. It's those tough things that how do you define supporting versus lead? Because I think he's got more screen time almost than even more than David, because there are some scenes where we spend with just Culkin.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But he's supporting. Okay.
He's supporting. Okay. Here's one we haven't talked about yet. Clarence Macklin, who is in the movie Sing Sing.
Gotcha.
So he plays one of the inmates at the Sing Sing prison, and he's the one who gets kind of brought into the new recruit into the theatrical group there.
Gotcha.
So Clarence Macklin with Sing Sing. The one film we have not seen, Guy Pearce in The Brutalist. Haven't seen The Brutalist yet. That A24 release, both Sing Sing and The Brutalist A24 films. And then we have Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2. Now, Variety is going ahead and put their little 3 red asterisks next to Denzel Washington.
Okay, that
and
means
said that is the one they think is going to win.
Okay.
And I'm going to echo Variety here that given what I've seen, other than I have not seen Guy Pearce in the Brutalist, so just fair acknowledgement of that one could come out and surprise me. But of the 4 I've seen, I'm going to say Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2, I think is going to win out of those 4. Now, do I think it should win? Maybe. I really liked Yura Borisov and Anora.
Right.
I really liked Clarence Macklin in Sing Sing.
Okay. And I really like Culkin. And
so we're kind of all over the place. We like all of them.
It's a tough category.
It is a tough category. There's some really good performances in there. I mean, I would not be bothered by any of the 5 of these winning because I think they're all good stuff. I think Gladiator 2 with Denzel Washington, just because it's Denzel Washington, you always have that little bit of that acknowledgement of career kind of in a thing. It is a big showy performance. It's a little against type, which I think is good, and I think awards people see that. I don't think Gladiator 2 is going to get anything else. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. But anyway.
Well, and I think, so I expressed, not remorse, but just curiosity at Kieran Culkin being put in this category. However, I could see the movie studio that, made A Real Pain. I could see maybe the logic in saying like, okay, it is more of a lead performance, maybe, but we're going to put it in supporting because it is such a huge performance that maybe people would think it'd be lead, but supporting, maybe that will help people sway votes because they'll be like, yeah, it should have been a lead, but it's such a huge performance. It's such a great performance. We'll go ahead. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
So it has more firepower because it's in a supporting category because it's a smaller film. So maybe that would help its chances.
That is possible.
But
yes, I could see
interesting.
That.
So I agree. I guess and then again, I've learned that Variety is the source of Alan's. Variety is Alan Svengali for putting together his ballot for Oscar party. I probably Denzel Washington. Yeah,
it just makes sense. It just makes sense. Okay, so that's the supporting actor. But again, I think it's a strong category. Oh, yeah. I think all five. I mean, granted, haven't seen Guy Pearce yet, but of the four I've seen, they're all really good, and I would be ecstatic to hear any of those four read out at this point as the winner. All right, and then for actor.
Which I guess A24, if they want us to see it, they better hurry up and send us like a screening link because it's going to take us that long to watch the film.
Yeah, it's like a 3.5
hours, something like that. No.
Yeah, right. It's like over 3 hours.
It's long.
It's a long film. I'm anxious to see it. That and A Complete Unknown are the only two films at this point that are like big discussions around award season that we haven't seen, and we just haven't gotten access to those two films. They haven't been released in theaters yet, but we also don't have screeners yet. So those two the jury's out on those two. We got to wait on those two.
Sure.
Okay, and then actor.
Okay,
here we go. And out of this list, there are three films I haven't seen. So this makes it a little challenging, but Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, again, as we mentioned. Timothy Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, again, have not seen yet.
Right.
And then Daniel Craig in the movie Queer.
Which is an A24 release.
It is an A24 movie, have not seen yet, unfortunately. So those three make it a little challenging. So we're only left with two names of films that we've actually seen. We have Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing.
Okay.
And we have Ray Fiennes for Conclave.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this one's a little tougher for us to make any kind of judgment on because, again, 3 of the 5 films we haven't seen yet.
Okay,
but
the Brutalist, Complete Unknown, what was the third one?
Queer.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel Craig.
Yeah, having not seen A Complete Unknown, you got to figure, though, Timothy Chalamet is doing Bob Dylan. The film kind of hinges, I would assume, kind of on his performance. And from the previews we've seen, it looks like, he looks like him, seems to sing like him. So it's kind of like the Johnny Cash Walk the Line situation with Joaquin Phoenix. You would assume that that's going to be a really strong and tough performance to beat.
Well, but Timothy Chalamet's got the 3 red asterisks next to him on the Variety page. So, yes, they are predicting Timothy Chalamet for Best Actor.
Okay.
Which boggles my mind. But, okay.
Why does that boggle your mind, Alan?
Well, it's just I've never been the biggest admirer of him as an actor.
Okay.
Just not a super fan. So he's got to win me over on this film. I'll just lay that out there. It's going to take some work on this one to see, but I look.
If he wins, will he go up and do the speech as if he's Paul Atreides? That's my question. Which would be amazing. They'd be like, no. You won for A Complete Unknown.
Do Dylan.
Right.
Don't do Paul. Do Bill. I really like Coleman Domingo and Sing Sing.
Okay.
He would be my pick. Granted, I've only seen 2 of these. So between him and Ray Fiennes. And I like Ray Fiennes a lot in Conclave too. So it's like both those performances I'm fine with. I feel bad in that this is a category I haven't seen enough of the movies in.
Right.
I will note this is A24 seems to have a stranglehold on the actor categories. 3 of the 5 nominees, or at least predicted nominees, are A24 films. On the supporting actor, 2 of the 5 were A24 films. A24's got the actors. Interestingly enough, none of the actresses we talked about last week, lead or supporting in the predictions category, were A24 films. None of them.
Okay.
So they're kind of all hemmed in on the male performances this year for A24.
Okay. Interesting.
Are there any that we're missing that you can really call out from this so far that we've seen that you're surprised are not on the list?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I think I've had a chance to catch up with Heretic, which was an A24 release that had Hugh Grant. And I mean, it's a horror film, so that right there is going to make you say, well, no wonder there's been no talk of it. He gives a really good performance in the film.
Okay.
It probably would be supporting. But I mean, it kind of hinges on him. You know, he's a really, so it doesn't surprise me that he's not nominated, but if he was, I could be like, yeah, I get that. Another one that I don't believe was nominated, because I would recall back to last week with the ladies, and hers would be a lead performance, was Amy Adams Night Bitch? Was she? No. Okay.
No.
I've had a chance to catch up with that film, and I mean, kind of hinges on her. So those may be 2 that I could say, but those are more, more independent, edgier films.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that things like Conclave and Gladiator 2 and things like that are, and A Complete Unknown, I get that, are getting more of the attention. It is interesting to me, though, I will say, that The Brutalist has 2 awards in the supporting and lead actor, because for that being such a a long film, hasn't even come out yet, like that's surprising to me. But
The only name I would drop in there I was hoping there'd be a little more discussion around them. In this, I know the film came out early in the year. I don't think it's going to get any buzz at Oscar time. From Challengers. Challengers is one film I do feel like it just came out so early, and I don't know if it's just off everybody's radar, but I'm really disappointed that's not getting more buzz right now. Now, I could be surprised. Nominations actually come out, and it could be all over the place, but I kind of doubt it at this point. But Mike Faced and or Josh O'Connor, I think both of them are really good in that film, and I would have liked to have seen one get something. And even if it's, I don't know how they would judge lead or supporting with that type of role either.
Zendaya, I mean, I think she.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't kind of ask our thoughts on the actresses last week if there were any that were missing. Right. But yeah, I think Zendaya was a candidate last week as well for the actors category. So yeah, that's the one film I'm just right now kind of bummed that's not getting more love. But again, I know these are predictions. I know this is just, the real stuff will come out in late January, and it could be very different. But right now, Challengers.
There was a lot of critic love for that film, and then it just kind of, it's interesting. And I would say it didn't stand a chance, but another film that came out in February that you would have thought would have been forgotten, but then ended up winning Best Picture and got some acting awards, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Had a similar type of, so there's a chance.
Yeah, there's a chance. There is a chance. But yeah, I think overall, I think other than that film and those 2 lead actors or 2 acting performances, I feel like you got the category okay. I think we're okay on this.
So I'll throw out another one. Heretic was the first one that came out to mind with Hugh Grant. Sebastian Stan for A Different Man.
Now that is a film I am planning on watching next.
Okay.
Haven't seen yet, but I am very curious to see. And
I can see how it is not Gladiator 2, Conclave, A Complete Unknown. So it is a smaller release type film, so and quirky or whatever. So I can see why the spotlight's not on it, but it's a good performance.
Okay. All right. We'll be interested to see that.
And difficult to pull off. I think difficulty level.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. Well, that is the acting category for the guys, the best actor, best supporting actor categories. And again, just keep in mind, guys, these are all just predictions at this point. Variety put the predictions out. We're commenting and expanding on those predictions. Nobody knows anything, and these could be all completely wrong by the time January rolls around. But again, I do think we're at a point where I don't know of any other films that are going to kind of come up and make a buzz in the next 30 days.
Sure.
I do think kind of on our watch list, The Brutalist, Complete Unknown, Queer, those are three that sounds like we need to make sure we're catching up with here pretty soon before we determine our end of the year ballots and all.
Complete Unknown, is that Christmas Day?
It is.
Okay.
But it's a Searchlight film, so my hopes are we get access to it a little sooner than that. So those are the three right now kind of on the watch list as far as to catch up with and make sure we see. Otherwise, I think once we see those three, as far as one's all in the discussion going on, I think we're pretty well caught up for the most part. So, yeah, at least according to Variety.
So maybe next week, not as a dynamic topic to discuss, but still, Oscar, we could discuss, if Variety has talked about this, maybe they're still putting together their list, but best foreign language film and best animated film, those two categories, because those are ones we usually discuss on the show. So.
Yes, we'll need to dig into those. I'm woefully behind on my documentaries, my foreign films, and my animated films.
Oh, yeah, documentaries, I guess that could be.
Yeah, all three of those.
Sure.
I'm nowhere near. So that's going to be my December, I think, to kind of stock up on those. Maria is another one that probably needs to be checked out because of Angelina Jolie's performance.
Okay.
Getting some buzz. So,
got you.
So those four films I think we have on our kind of premier Oscar watch list viewing history here. So, okay. Well, I think that wraps it up for today. So we had 2 reviews and we had our discussion of the actor categories in the upcoming Oscar nomination race. Chris, if anybody would like to talk to us about any of this, if they have a completely different take on Juror number 2 and want to tell us how it's brilliant and all of the scripting and writing was spot on for it, have at it. Or if they want to tell us how Real Pain was a real pain for them and they actually do not agree with us, anything, we're open to those discussions. How can somebody get a hold of us?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. We are on Facebook, Foot Candle Film Society, Instagram and Threads, Foot Candle Film. We're on Blue Sky. Also still hanging out on Twitter @Foot Candle Film. We're also on Letterboxd, last place we are. We try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes. So that's Letterboxd without an E there at the end. Alan and I both have 2 different accounts on there, Alan Jackson and Chris Fry. That's fairly easy to find us. Do us a favor. If you like the show, consider giving us a star rating, write a review, share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on, because it'll help us reach new listeners, and we would appreciate that.
All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for today. We'll be back with you next week with some more film reviews and discussions and predictions. So stay tuned. It's going to be a fun end of the year as we kind of inch towards the close of 2024. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.